I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
of
United States of America,
Okay.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice.
for all.
Thank you very much. Great. Agenda review. Kathy?
Yes, I think there's just one item that I wanted to add under COVID update, just in case folks want to have some discussion and make any changes, that also include action along with information.
Okay, so we'll add an action item to COVID update, if that's okay with everyone. Yes, Heather?
Yeah, could we also add under academic affairs, policy JCA?
Policy JCA. Okay, policy JCA is added for approval under academic affairs, if that's all right with everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, next item on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes. The first is the Academic Affairs Committee meeting on November 9th.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 9th Academic Affairs meeting minutes.
Motion by Tim, second by Charlene. The members of that committee only vote on that.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Krista is an aye. Tim
Yes.
and Charlene.
Yes.
And who's the other member? Wendy?
Yes.
No. Yes, Wendy.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is the school board meeting of November 9th, the minutes for the meeting of November 9th.
Make a motion to approve November 9th school board meeting.
Moved by Tim, second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Jim. Okay, roll call vote, Krista.
Aye.
Julianne is not here yet. Timothy?
Yes.
Eldridge? Wendy?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yep.
Charlene?
Yes.
Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Dana? Dana's not here either. Okay. And Chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, the next set of minutes is this is for the finance committee, the members of the finance committee. And that's myself, Jim Manning, Jim Pittman, and Dana Streeter. The first set of minutes is for the meeting on November 17th.
Move to accept.
Second. Okay, Dr. Jim and Jim Pittman. And the members of that committee, so Dr. Jim,
Yes.
Jim Pittman,
Yes,
and Dana is absent, and I vote yes as well, thank you.
actually, David just got here.
Jack, I think Dana's in.
Dana,
Yeah,
you just got here. You on, Dana?
he's on mute. He's muted.
You're muted, I think, Dana. We can't hear you.
How's that?
That's better. All right,
Well-
we're taking a vote on the Finance Committee meeting on the 17th, the minutes on the 17th. Vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the Finance meeting for November 18th. Motion for that?
So, move to accept.
Okay, move from Dr. Jim. Second?
Second,
Second by Jim Pittman. All right, all those in favor, Dr. Jim,
Yes.
Jim Pittman,
yes.
Dana,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. And the Finance meeting for the 9th, same group. Motion,
So moved. Move to accept.
Dr. Jim. Second?
Sure. Second,
Okay. All right, Dr. Manning,
Yes.
Jim Pittman,
yes.
Dana,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Okay, next item is to approve the manifest for tonight, and the totals for the manifest are as read here. Payroll is $2,234,000 $154.67. Accounts payable is $1,370,889.33, and the total is $3,605,044, no cents.
Move to
I'll
move.
make-
Second.
Motion to approve, seconded by Tim. Okay, again, all those in favor of approving the manifest in the total of $3,605,044. Roll call vote. Krista?
Aye.
Tim?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yep.
Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Chair votes aye as well. Okay, so that takes care of that. Public input for those that might be watching in. I suggest that you send emails in. We're not responding at this point to text messages. It gets too confusing and too awkward to try to do text messaging while the meeting is going on. So please send emails. You can send emails to sau49@sau49.org. If you feel more comfortable sending to myself, you can send it to my email at jwidmer@sau49.org. Either way, and send your emails in. We'll respond tomorrow as soon as we can. So the next item on the agenda is the preliminary adoption of the budget for next year.
Okay, and that comes under superintendent's reports. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the share button so that Jack can share this with you. Do you have it? No, I can
I
see it.
don't.
You don't. Okay, let me go back. I
Okay.
can't tell you how many times I did this. Can't share. An error has occurred when screen sharing. Okay, let me try this again. All right, just hang on. I'm going to have to search for it on my desktop. Okay, we'll give it another go here. You seeing it now?
Yes.
All right.
There we go. Excellent. All right.
That's exactly how it came up last time, but I think it's enough so that you can get a good view of it.
Okay. So bear with me as I read through the presentation. Thank you for tuning in tonight for the preliminary budget hearing. We held 3 Finance Committee meetings in November, which are open to the public. This meeting is the first hearing in January. In January, we will hold a budget adoption hearing, and there will also be an opportunity to hear an explanation of the budget at the deliberative session on January 30th. The public is also welcome to reach out to the SAU office or board members with questions. We want to provide community members with several opportunities to learn about the budget with the hopes that you will become familiar with it and that all of your questions are asked before voting in March. There we go. There are many steps in the budget development process before the budget proposal comes before the full board. Budget presentation begins in October. Principals meet with the faculty and staff and provide them with requests and recommendations regarding what is needed for each school. Each administrator submits a budget to the SAU office. The business administrator and superintendent of schools meets with each school leader to discuss their requests. If there is a large increase in the individual school budget, unless there is a special circumstance or very well justified rationale, the administrator is asked to review the budget and reduce it while keeping priorities intact. If any specific increase remains that doesn't have strong justification, a second cut may occur. Personnel requests are made at the same time. Requests for positions may or may not proceed to the Finance Committee meeting depending on the strength of the rationale outlining the need for the position. There are occasions when requested positions are well justified and very much needed, yet, nevertheless, due to financial circumstances, the Finance Committee is unable to recommend that to remain in the budget. This is a position we are in this year. The business administrator reviews the district line items and determines amounts to request based on past history, current expenditures, and projected pricing. After cuts, adjustments, and reallocations have been made, the Finance Committee meets with the principals, the special education director, the business administrator, and the superintendent to review the budget requests. At this time, the Finance Committee recommends changes they feel are necessary to bring a budget to the voters that supplies what our schools need and what the voters will support. These are the public meetings that I referred to earlier that occur in November. Again, this year, the administrators did an excellent job bringing forward a responsible budget. This budget is not a pandemic budget and is based on the assumption we will be back to full-time school next year. However, due to the pandemic, lowered revenue projections and concern about the tax rate have been looked at every possible place to reduce the budget and still provide what is needed for our children. The enrollment figures you see here illustrate the decrease we have seen in the majority of our schools. Only Crescent Lake School has increased enrollment. Last year, we saw a slight upward trend. However, our enrollment has definitely been affected by the pandemic. The lower student numbers include our students who are in an entirely remote program. However, the numbers do not include the students who are being homeschooled. It is difficult to know how many of the students who are currently not in school will return when the pandemic is over. This is key for many reasons, including the fact that our enrollment numbers have an impact on our revenue. When we have fewer students, we receive less adequacy aid, also known as grant money, from the state of New Hampshire. The decrease in the grant is also more than we are able to decrease our expenses. The vast majority of school districts are experiencing lower enrollments due to the pandemic and anticipate that the revenues will be negatively impact on next year's adequacy dollars based on these enrollment numbers. There is some attempt to appeal to the legislature to pass legislation that would hold the districts harmless and allow the use of last year's numbers or an average of the last 3 years. Here is a quick summary of the broadest budget categories. The employee expenses have increased 5.37%. This is the largest increase in the budget. The other expense categories has increased 1.24%. The general fund budget has a total increase of 4.46%. The substantial increase in this budget are ones we have very little control over. The general fund budget does not include the decreases in building and maintenance warrant articles, which is 19.23%. This brings the total budget increase to 4.16%. In the employee portion of the general fund budget, the area that has shown the most significant increase is New Hampshire retirement. The increase in this area is $38,403, which represents an increase of 25.54%. This increase is not due to any circumstances locally, but is related to the management of the retirement fund and investments affecting the plan's underfunded actuarial liability or the amount of promised benefits that are greater than the assets of the pension plan. The employee expenses portion in the general fund category, the second largest increase in the budget. In spite of the teachers and support staff picking up a larger percentage of their healthcare insurance costs, it is in this area, it has a large increase as well. The health insurance increase is $749,479. The percent increase is 9.14%. The rate is largely driven by claims. Wages for our staff is 1.64%, or $416,169. The support staff will be in the final year of a 3-year contract, and the teachers are in the 3rd year of a 4-year collective bargaining agreement. The wages are fixed and driven by collective bargaining agreements that were previously approved. We do not have control over the raises in the health insurance rate or the increase in the New Hampshire retirement system. These increases were so significant, we had to make some difficult decisions regarding the remaining areas of the budget. For example, we were not able to fund personnel requests for 2 additional positions. We would have liked to have been able to support these requests, but felt that we could not, given the areas that increased that we are obligated to fund. The total increase in the remaining portion of the general fund budget is only 1.24%, for a total of $97,526. Professional services has an increase due to our contract with Huggins Hospital for our nursing services. We looked at all areas in this portion of the budget. We lowered repairs and maintenance and made small changes where we felt we could without impacting programs too severely. Athletics, rubbish disposal, printing, replacement of furniture and general supplies are areas we took a serious look at. The IT department upgraded the phone system in some of the schools as planned, and this is a savings to the district of 19% on the cost of phone service. Our contracted transportation was lowered. We have a grant that will pay for a portion of a van, allowing the district to transport more of our special education students to outside placement, rather than contracting with a company which is more expensive. The only notable increases are in the computer area. The district needs to continue to fund software licenses in order to use the programs we have found beneficial to students and staff. Computer equipment is needed to replace the equipment that is no longer functioning due to age or use. This includes a tremendous amount of the Chromebooks. The cost of vehicle replacement is down with the help of a special education grant. In the past several years, we've retired our debt for Ossipee, Effingham, and New Durham bonds, leaving only the bond for the Kingswood Complex renovation. As our principal on the bond for the complex decreases, the building aid, which helps defray our cost, also decreases. This year, the decrease adds 1.31% to our debt service, for a total of $47,000. There are no collective bargaining agreements on the warrant this year. The 2 articles that we propose each year, building and maintenance and the turf field capital reserve, are once again being recommended. The proposed building and maintenance warrant article is for $150,000 rather than $200,000. The Finance Committee is recommending the $50,000 reduction in spite of a very long list of projects that need to be completed. We'll definitely need to return to our usual recommendation in order to keep our schools in good repair for the long term. The warrant article for the turf field is recommended at $60,000. These dollars come from unexpended funds at the end of the year. If the funds are not available, they will not be made available to put into the reserve. If the voters continue to support the article with the money, the replacement for the field in 2024, which is a projected date, will be available. Moving on to the revenue section. Our revenues for the coming year are projected to be lower. Adequacy aid, which is a state grant, will be lower due to both lower enrollment and the calculations based on those students eligible for free and reduced lunch. The projection is that we will receive $503,720 less. As we pay down the principal on the Kingswood Complex building project bonds, we receive less in building aid. Next year, we'll receive $57,151 less than we did this year. Equally important is the calculation of the tax rate is the amount of money returned to the general fund. Each year, the school district returns the entire fund balance back to the towns. This past year, with schools closing in March, the district had a much larger fund balance and were able to return $3,965,339 to taxpayers. This helped reduce taxes. However, returning the money has the unfortunate effect of artificially inflating the percent increase in the taxes the following year. This year, we will return the fund balance to the towns as we always do. However, we will not have the large sum available to return to the taxpayers this year, since our expenses have not been decreased by the pandemic, instead have increased. These substantial decreases in projected revenues and a likely effect on the tax rate played a significant role in the decision to cut back in so many areas of the proposed budget. Looking at the default budget, the purpose of presenting a default budget is to give the voters an understanding of what the budget would look like should the proposed operating budget be voted down. RSA 40:13 is the official ballot law, also known as SB2. It is this RSA that determines what is to be included as part of the default budget. A default budget contains the appropriations in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and/or increased by obligations mandated by law or previously incurred, such as debt service and contracts previously approved in a specific amount. One-time expenditures are not included in a default budget. The proposed budget is $56,220,378, and the default budget is $56,218,233. The default budget is $2,145 lower than the proposed budget. This provides an example of what an incredibly frugal budget this is, with the default budget and the proposed budget being so close. The important dates to remember: January 11th, the school board meeting is for the budget adoption hearing. Right now, we're not sure exactly where that's going to be held. We're hoping it might be in the lecture hall, if we can do social distancing, and for the number of people that show up, that's to be determined. January 12th is the last day for petition warrant articles. January 5th is the last day to post warrant articles, budget, and the default budget. And January 30th is the deliberative session. And again, right now, that is still scheduled for the Arts Center, with social distancing by both the board and the members that come to hear the deliberative session. Voting is on March 22nd, 29th. And up for re-election this year, Julianne Cardinal, the new Durham school rep, Tim Eldridge, a member at large, and myself, the Tufton Borough rep. And again, if you have any questions, please email the SAU office within 24 hours of this meeting, and we will consider all comments, and it will be part of the record, and we'll get back to any questions and concerns in those emails as soon as we possibly can. And that is the end of the budget presentation at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Jack. We should all be seeing each other now. Is everybody seeing everybody
Yep.
else? Or as many as you can see in your grid?
We're back.
Great. All right. So,
Before we move on,
sure.
can I ask, Jack, in the
Yes.
budget, were you able to include an increase in pay for substitutes?
That is being considered, and we do have that as part of the process. We're not sure exactly what the dollar numbers are, but yeah, we are looking at that to make sure, because obviously we have a shortage of substitute teachers, and other districts are advertising by a rate. So we're going to try to find that money wherever we can.
One of the things that we need to consider in that, Krista, is a rate that is not higher than our regular rate. So we're going to have to do a little bit of research on that, because the last time we visited this, which was before negotiations, I believe that our hourly rate would have ended up being lower than the substitute rate, which is not quite, that's not going to work. So,
Right.
So we'll
Right.
bring.
We have to make the
back-
rate equitable. Yeah.
So we'll bring back some information on that for next time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Jack, could I ask
questions
a question also?
or on the budget? Because I know the budget numbers don't look really great, and I always harp on the retirement plan and all that. There's not much we can do about that. The rate increase this year. So just with the rate increase, because they're on a 2-year rate cycle, that created just more of an issue. So the rate is very high at this point, and again, this is all mostly to like I explained, to take care of the unfunded balance that they have for the retirement benefits that are being promised. So maybe in another 30 years we'll catch up and have enough money in the account to be able to fund everybody.
Jack,
I
will you
just wanna
also,
say, will
will you also remind me, what were the positions that we weren't able to put in? There was a math position.
There was a math position that unfortunately, just because of the sheer numbers, we had to take out. And the other one was
Was it special ed, part-time?
that was a part-time special ed increase, yeah.
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah, as much as we'd love to add those back in, it's just, the numbers just didn't make it work this year.
I have a
No.
question. I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yes.
I can't remember what, this is probably a question for you and Human Resources. What percentage of their healthcare coverage do our employees currently have as a participation?
Let me see, I'm trying to remember now. I think the teachers are at 7%, I believe. In this budget, they're at 7%. The fourth year, they go to 10%. And the support staff is at 10%. And the administrators, I don't remember.
The administrators, I believe, are at, I think they're 3%.
3%.
Yeah, the administrators are at 3%, and that, they're one of the few administrative groups that is paying anything. But again, as that contract comes up, that'll be another discussion, obviously. Very, very small numbers when you look at the number of administrators, obviously, compared to the rest of the staff. But yeah, the support staff is at 10%. The teachers currently at 7%, and they go to 10% next year.
Okay, thanks. I knew they contributed, but I couldn't remember what the percentage was. Thank Thank you.
It's yeah, the teachers started out at 3% the first year, 5% the second, 7%, and then 10%.
Thanks.
Jack, can I ask
Any
a
other
question?
questions? Yeah.
Regarding the building and maintenance, it went to 150 instead of the 200,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know you guys have done some hard work to try and get those numbers down and what have you. But I'd strongly recommend just knowing the list of things that we continuously have and need to have completed for all of our buildings throughout the district. I would strongly suggest that number gets raised back up to the 200,000.
Okay. We'll certainly look at that, and maybe Kathy and Kathy, we can put together that list so we can really see what the numbers look like, and then between now and the final budget adoption, we can talk about that and see if it makes sense to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Anything else on the budget? Oh, okay. Let's move on then to American Education Week.
Okay. So the November 19th, 16th to the 20th was American Education Week. And as we generally do, we sent out a letter to staff. So I will just read that for you. It says, "Dear colleagues, since 1921, when American Education Week was established, our public schools have faced trials that forced us to question our convictions, shaken us to our core, and dared us to shift our mindset. Today, for many of us, the current challenges we face may be the greatest of our lifetime, and yet you have each risen up for our students, our families, and our community with strength, compassion, and grace. It is times like this when words alone seem inadequate to express our gratitude for you and the work that you do. Please click on the thank you link below and know that this is for you. The world needs you now more than ever before." And then it says thank you, and it's from Heather and myself. And the video that accompanied it was really a montage of first responders and essential workers and people that are on the front lines during the pandemic. So we really do appreciate everybody who's working in our schools with our kids. They're doing an awesome job and working really hard. So if any of them are listening tonight, thank you so much. The next item is another happy item. We have been awarded a grant for our robotics program at the high school. And this is really due to the hard work of Jim Sittimer. Jim Sittimer has taken over the robotics program and really done a fantastic job chasing all the money that he can chase because, as you all know, it's a very expensive program, but it's such a valuable program for kids. And he's just very quietly goes about finding the funds and getting everything done and getting kids to every event they need to get to. So I just wanted to let you know that we have this additional money, and again to thank Jim for all his efforts. Moving right along.
Do we have to accept that? This is an action item on the.
Is it as an action item?
I think it's a small amount, but I think since it's an action item, we probably should just accept it.
Sure.
Move
So
to accept.
Motion to accept by Dr. Jim. Here a second.
Second.
Second by who? Charlene?
Yes.
Okay, second by Charlene. Okay, so a motion to accept the grant, and it's for $4,650 according to the letter here. All those in favor? Krista?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Absolutely.
Jim?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay.
Hey, great. Thank you. Next item is a letter that I received from the superintendent of schools from Wakefield. The Wakefield School Board, and Wakefield has requested this from time to time, that I come to you and ask you about the the feasibility of utilizing superintendent services from the SAU office. So they're in the gathering of information process, and you have the letter in your file. So they sent it as a formal request and would like a response from the school board if there is any interest in having them purchase superintendent services and SAU services.
Well, if I can throw my 2 cents in, I mean, I think our SAU office does an absolutely fantastic job for Governor Wentworth and for Middleton. And I think we're spread pretty thin as far as I'm concerned, as far as personnel. And I don't know what it would take to add additional personnel, time factor. We know that the meetings that we have, the meetings that Middleton have, certainly put a stress on the current staff, and we agreed to do that when we took Middleton in as tuition students and to help them through their process of building their elementary school. And I think that process still works okay. There's extra time and effort that's needed, and there's a little extra revenue to handle that. I just don't see the feasibility at this point of taking on something the size of Wakefield to provide superintendent and or financial services to them. I think it's a strain. Certainly, and in this time frame as well, I just don't see that being a feasible process for us. But listen to anybody else's comments.
I would think that we would also need to get input from you, Kathy, when all the Kathys and Heather and everyone else, to find out what sort of stress that would put on the SAU to do that.
Well, I have to tell you, I think the SAU is at capacity right now, and sometimes I feel like it's even beyond capacity. If we were to take on additional services for another school district, I think we'd have to add personnel. And if we added personnel right in the office set up the way it is now, we don't even have the space to put someone else here. So if we were to add personnel and add a little construction to make another cubicle or however we would do it, that's going to add cost to the services. And I think probably Wakefield is looking, like most districts would be, to have an economical situation. And I'm not sure it would be economically and financially what they would be looking for. So, and I think Heather and Kathy would probably agree that people are pretty much at capacity. But
I think the other thing that I might be a little bit concerned about, if it looked like something we wanted to look at, is the possibility. If you remember, several years ago, Wakefield came to us looking to tuition their students to our high school as well. Actually, they weren't looking to tuition; they were looking to become a member of the Governor Wentworth Regional School District, which we said no, that wasn't going to happen, and they went away at that point. So. I'm not sure if this is maybe a first step in maybe an attempt to kind of work their way into more, more students in Governor Wentworth. I may be a little skeptical about that, but I think that we have to be careful of that. But in all honesty, I think our SAU office is doing a fantastic job, and I think even the Middleton addition of services, I think, has put maybe a little more strain than we maybe anticipated in the beginning. So not that we're certainly happy with the process, but I think getting into another district outside of what we normally do can certainly add some extra stress and some extra work to everyone in the office. So that's my pitch on that. Any other comments? This is an action item, so I would think we'd want to either vote to consider it or vote that we're not interested at this time, whichever might be the case.
For the sake of discussion, I'm willing to make a motion to that effect. I would move that at this time, we do not consider providing superintendent services to Wakefield.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
second by Tim. Okay. All right, any other discussion before we vote on that? Okay, hearing none, let's take a vote. Krista?
Agreed.
Tim?
Agree.
Wendy?
Agreed.
Dr. Jim?
Agreed.
Jim Pittman?
Agreed.
Charlene?
Aye.
Dana?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. Thank you. Okay, so,
And a letter to that effect.
yeah,
Okay.
and you, when you send that letter, Kathy, if you want it as under my signature as chairman of the board, because we voted on that, that's fine. Either way.
Okay, sure. All right, next item. Well, I have to say, looking at the school calendar for next year, it was really exciting to think about developing a calendar for kids to be in school full time. So, and it was one of the easier calendars, I think, well, we'll see after you start to talk about it, but it seemed to be one of the easier calendars to construct this year because we didn't have as late a start date. We didn't have the federal elections that we had this past year. So it was, I think it's a pretty good calendar with a fairly reasonable end date. So a lot of it is similar to what we've done in the past. Parent conferences are held the week of Thanksgiving as they have been in the past. Christmas break begins on Friday, December 24th, and students return on Monday, January 23rd. February
3rd.
Pardon?
January 3rd.
23rd, no, thank you, Jack. January 3rd. February vacation is the last week of February. There's the March Professional Development Day that's been really important for teachers that has been built in. April vacation is the last week of April, which has been traditional. And the other thing I want to comment on as far as the vacations is they should line up pretty well with the districts that are sending students to LRTC. We try to match as much as possible with those districts. So those are usually the vacations that they take. And then by getting it done a little bit early, we can say, okay, here's the calendar, and it gives them an opportunity to also see if they can make their calendar match ours as much as possible, so the students have as much time in school here at the center as possible. So, and then it would make the last day of school June 17th with a tentative graduation date of June 11th. And then the other thing that I would propose, since the Department of Education has approved remote learning days as school days, I propose that our snow days be remote learning days, and that would give parents and employers of our high school students a more firm end date. We would still need to build in the 30 hours or the 5 days at the end of the calendar because that's what the Department of Education requires, but that would be used for things like an emergency that we had to close school for, you know, if it was something in a building or a lack of power or something like that. So that is my thought, because I think I think parents especially, and some of our businesses do prefer to have an end date that's more predictable. So.
Okay, any comments on the calendar?
You shared this with the union?
You know, I generally do, but I did not this year. That got by me, Krista. But I'm happy to do that.
It sounds like a good calendar. I just was wondering.
Yeah, I usually do every year share it with the union, and I think, you know, there's.
You dropped something?
I think I did. I'm embarrassed to say so, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though it's listed as an action item, we can always delay voting on this until next month if we want to. just so Kathy has some time to just double check. I have no problem with that. I think that makes sense.
That's a good idea.
And if there's anything else on the calendar that somebody looks at that says, well, can we change this or modify that? We'll have the next month to take care of that. And then we can do the official approval in January and make sure the sending districts know that we have a firm calendar for the following year.
Sounds good.
Good.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Move the
Okay.
table.
Okay.
Jack?
Move. I got it. Move the table. All right. Where's Dr. Jim here? Dr. Jim, move the table. Table. Okay. All right. Who's going to second the table?
Second.
Second.
Second by Charlene. Okay. All right. Krista.
Table.
All right. Table. Tim.
Aye.
Wendy.
Table.
Dr. Jim.
Aye.
Jim Pittman.
Aye.
Charlene.
Aye.
Dana.
Yes.
Yep. Chair votes aye as well. Okay. So we've tabled the calendar until next month. Excellent.
Okay. So, all right. The next item is an update on COVID-19, which, as you might imagine, takes a lot of my time these days. But I have to say, I've been very pleased that we've been able to keep the schools open so consistently thus far. The social distancing and the halftime schedule have been really instrumental in that, because as you've seen my emails come across with a case here and a case there, we haven't had a lot of staff members or students who have had to quarantine. We did have one on Friday, as you all know, that required more quarantining because it involved sports team and involved the hockey girls and boys teams. But you know, in talking with administrators, I think that they're feeling like they're managing it. When there's a staff absence, there isn't always somebody to put in place because we're low on staff. But sometimes we'll switch roles, and a reading specialist will take a classroom, or a principal will go in and do some instructing. Not ideal by any means, but I think we're managing it. In talking with each of our school leaders, the absence rate, and of course I've been keeping track of that as well, and as I'm sure you know, that has been steadily increasing since Thanksgiving due to some quarantining, but also symptoms the time of year where kids have more colds and flu season is coming. And so we've seen more symptoms and more kids out of school for that and quarantining. And it's just a slow trajectory. I think it's important to note how hard our staff members are working to keep up with everything, because they're doing the hybrid model. They're planning for asynchronous instruction when the kids are not in school. They have their remote sessions on Wednesdays, and then they have lots of makeup now to be providing for students. So they're working really, really hard. I give them a lot of credit. My biggest concern is that at some point the student absence rate is going to be so high that we'll have more kids out of school than in school. That happens periodically now. We've had a few classrooms where there have been 5 students at home and 2 students in class. It's not super widespread by any means, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing in some pockets. If we look at the metric, I did email that to you. I had hoped that if we had been in person, I would have given it to you in your packets, but I emailed it to you instead. And so we are seeing in the 2 communities that we're involved with that the higher risk category is where our 2, Stratford County and Carroll County, are at right now. How soon they will be in the highest risk category, I don't know. Obviously, that just depends on the positive rate. We currently have active cases, or at least when I looked at this, we had active cases in every town but Brookfield. And we've had a few closings in a few schools, but it's been by grade level. as opposed to closing a school down. As I said, we've taken every measure we can to keep school open. So, if you look at the rubric for in-person, hybrid, and remote, we're still in the hybrid category, but I think we can see that it's leaning a little bit more toward the remote than it has been in the past, if you look at what each category says. So that's where we're at.
The one of the suggestions that I'd like to put out there and open for discussion would be to look at continuing with the hybrid model as we see it right now, from now to the Christmas vacation, and potentially from January to after Martin Luther King Day, for that 2-week cycle, do strictly remote. Just a suggestion out there. I feel strongly that a lot of people are going to be traveling during the vacation, during the holiday times. I don't know how that's going to affect us or not. I think right now the hybrid is still working, and we're controlling that as best we can. From now until Christmas is fine. I'm just afraid that when we get back from the Christmas holidays, that there could be a serious increase in what's happening out there. So, and then maybe having a target date. And again, this is something that I really just thought about, having a target date at the end of January, where we have an end of a grading period, in looking at potentially, depending on how the virus is going and how things are acting, at the end of January, 1st of February, maybe being able to go back on a full-time basis. I don't know if that's possible or not. But again, with the vaccines being put out fairly shortly, if there's a lot of positive things that happened, people obviously, the best thing for kids are to get them back in the classroom. No question about that. When can we do it safely? But I think if we have a target date, we see what the numbers are today. But I'd like to think about keeping the model that we have until the Christmas vacation, but really seriously consider 2 weeks of remote coming back. That gives the kids 5 days. After vacation, the kids are going to be in school, remote or whatever. Going to be in that classroom for 5 days a week, right after vacation, to get reacclimated into the educational process. So that's a suggestion I have. Open it up for discussion, please.
Just to clarify, so we would stay in the hybrid model basically through the Christmas vacation, and then have everyone fully remote for 2 weeks after Christmas vacation ends to try to mitigate any potential spike from travel over the holidays.
Correct.
Okay. I like that idea.
Kathy, what was the bounce after Thanksgiving?
Well, we're just seeing a slight trend up. I can't say that it's a huge bounce, but there's definitely a trend up.
I was noticing on some news reports that several states are reporting that because of the timing, that they're just now starting to see the Thanksgiving spike begin. And within another week, the thought is that it's going to be in all of its glory.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me how the going fully remote would work. Would the kids still go in their cohort groups, be online, or
No.
No. Go ahead, Kelly.
If they went fully remote for a 2-week period, they would be fully remote, and everybody would have classes every day. So it would be a 5-day-a-week program with a remote schedule.
Basically, what we did from March forward last year, where all the kids were remote in their classroom every day.
The difference, I think, between, or not I think, but the difference I know between last spring and now is that there are calendars and schedules ready to go, so that the remote program is a bit more robust in terms of the academic pieces of it.
Yes, Jim Pittman.
Yes, thank you. Well, I agree with you, Jack. I think this is a great idea. Unfortunately, we'd like to find ourselves in a situation where the situation is improving, but unfortunately, we're going the other way. And I think there's very little left to discussion that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And particularly the Christmas time being longer, I think we're going to see some pretty healthy opportunities for people to make decisions that will not support reduction in spread. So I don't know if that was a diplomatic way of saying that. But
No, that was
yeah.
that was fine. That was fine, Jim. And I think that if we do go remote afterwards, again, trying to mitigate any bump in the cases, if we can certainly stay remote if we need to after Martin Luther King Day. We'll be in that mode, and if again, if it's taking a couple of weeks for a spike to come to fruition from Thanksgiving, it may take that long or more after Christmas. So if we're in remote and we have to stay remote for a little bit, I think that certainly makes sense. I'm very optimistic about the vaccines that are coming out and all that. I think everything that I hear is great news, but that's going to take some time. And they say now it might be before summer before there's really enough for the general populace and all that. So if we can at least move into a safe area now, and again, I think if people know up front that this is the process that we're going to do. Listen, I feel for all these families that have to make adjustments to their daily schedules, and this is not easy at all for anybody. But I think it's the safest for not only the students, staff, community at large. I think it's kind of the right direction to head. But
yeah, and I agree. I think that the timing is right. If we can make this decision tonight, it gives people a month, basically, to plan for those couple of weeks, as opposed to waiting till some later date where then we're being reactionary and everybody's trying to shuffle things at the last minute.
yeah. Thank you. Anyone else?
The only thing I would say is knowing that there are some students and staff that, of course, nervous to come to school because of the potential of catching it, and the number of cases that we have, and the ripple effect that has, as far as people having to quarantine and just the whole 14 days or 10 days, as the CDC now says. I have a feeling, just from seeing the effects from the hockey, in that group having to quarantine, and the number of people that it has now affected, I would suggest that we finish out this week, giving the opportunity for the students that are in the different cohorts to be able to get their stuff together, the teachers to be able to make the plans, and then for the following week, we introduce that remote. I have certainly been one to try and get us back into the regular session, but just knowing what's going on out there, and seeing the trend that we've got going on within our own district, I feel strong that it's probably time now to move towards the remote instead of even waiting until after the holidays.
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in again. That was kind of one of the first proposals that I thought about. Using this week as the kind of the transition week, where cohort A and B are in Monday and Tuesday, or A is in Monday and Tuesday, B is in Thursday and Friday, and then everyone goes remote the following week. And that's certainly a possibility if that's what the board would like to do. I can go either way. I'm fine with that suggestion as well. I think the sooner we take a proactive approach on safety, the better off. And but that's up to the rest of the board too to decide. What do we think?
Well, can we ask Kathy what her opinion would be on that?
I really have struggled with this. I've talked with all of our school leaders today just about what their sense of, obviously the absence rate, and you've heard about that with staff and students, what the general feeling is with staff members. The union also sent out a survey. I've talked with the union. They sent out a survey, and it's very mixed. Very much like it was before, that people are conflicted about it. And there's no clear consensus in one direction or another. So I think we probably can I think we can make it to December, Christmas. I really support the remote after Christmas. Maybe the only thing is, as we saw last spring, we know things can turn on a dime, because I was watching the numbers in March, and we had closed for 2 days, and we were going to reopen as the numbers were spiking, because that's what DHHS was saying, and then the governor closed everything down. So the numbers can really, 2 days later, so the numbers can really change pretty quickly. So if the decision tonight was to stay open through Christmas vacation and then be remote afterwards, I'd like to reserve the option of being in touch with the board for an emergency meeting if we started to see some dramatic changes. So that would be my thought.
I like that. I prefer that model, because I think the longer we can keep the kids in school, the better off they are and their folks are. I don't have a problem with the closing down after the holidays, but I'd like to keep them there as long as we can, and we can safely. And if you deem by the numbers that are coming in that we need to shut down, then we shut down, period. And there's not any question about that.
Jack, I would just
Yes.
like to add a comment that just like Krista said and the superintendent said, I'd like to make it until Christmas also. And also parents and students are looking for consistency. And this would be one more chance, one more change that would put people in flux again. I think if we could just make it, unless there has to be an emergency meeting because the floors dropped out here. But I would recommend, if we can, get the Christmas vacation as is now. Right.
Okay. Thank you, Dana. Any other discussion on this particular matter? And then, if somebody wants to make a motion, we'll certainly entertain that. Again, either staying with the hybrid model as we see it to the Christmas vacation, and then change to remote afterwards for 2 weeks anyway to see how things are, or a motion to finish this week out and change to remote next week. So those are basically the two scenarios that we've been talking about. So I'd entertain a motion to either one or none.
Well, certainly I respect Kathy's opinion as far as trying to make it. As I said before, I'm one to keep the kids in there and go full time, but that just isn't the reality at this point. I really think as we saw again with the hockey team. That was a huge spike in numbers. Thankfully, it was somewhat contained and it didn't grow, but it could have. And I just fear that, it's just one of those things as like a ticking time bomb that we're waiting for, the number to rise. I think the approach that we should be taking is to finish out the week. We've got the rest of this week to notify parents. They've got the week to make the plans. It's not ideal, but I think the full remote is easier for the students to adjust to. So I guess if you're looking for a motion, I would make the motion that we go full remote as of December 14th.
Okay, so there's a motion.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, seconded by Charlene. Okay, Charlene, go for it.
I am concerned about the fact that we do want consistency. I completely agree with that. I also know that we have yet to see what the spike is going to be following Thanksgiving. We have yet to see what that's going to completely develop into. And I'm also very concerned about the fact that based on the experience with the two hockey teams, I'm wondering if we should revisit whether we should continue with winter sports, because it seems as if at least in one case, that has been somewhat of a super spreader event, albeit contained. So I wonder if so that's one thing I would like us to talk about. And also, we know in our community, because we can see it on YouTube, there's so many public gatherings where people are not wearing masks. And I worry about how certain activities are going to wind up affecting our school community. And, I'm conflicted because on the one hand, I think it makes sense because we might be having a spike from Thanksgiving. This next week would give us more of a chance to see how that develops. So I could be okay with either scenario, but I do think we should revisit whether we should continue winter sports when it's obviously having a negative impact on our schools in terms of scholastics.
I will tell you, Charlene, that after we have a vote on school opening, however we're going to do this process, our next discussion is going to be winter sports.
Okay.
Hi, it's Wendy. I just wanted to say that, listening to everyone, I agree with Charlene. As far as mitigating factors, I'd like to talk about sports as well. But, I know a week, a lot of people have daycare challenges, mental health challenges, work challenges. For me, I support, at least keeping them in as long as possible until before Christmas. But, certainly understand, Jack's perspective on the remote. But I just know how hard it is for parents and guardians to make alternative arrangements, even though week seems long, but it really isn't. Some people have been working on, are still struggling to put their plans together. But, certainly, like Charlene, want to address the sports because, again, I think if we do better mitigation, we can keep the kids in school longer. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the motion that's on the floor? So the motion on the floor is to finish this week out and start remote on December 14th. It's the motion on the floor at this point. Any other discussion?
Yeah, a little clarification.
Yes.
Are you implying that as part of this, is this going to include those 2 weeks in January?
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, we would stay remote then until after, if we start remote now, we'll stay remote until at least after Martin Luther King Day.
Okay, that just wasn't stated in the motion.
Okay,
So
we'll clarify the motion then, if that's okay, Tim, that the motion is we start remote on December 14th, and it will continue through Martin Luther King Day, at least through Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, that would be correct.
Question,
Yep.
Jack.
Yes.
Kathy, how long would it take to go to remote if we stayed in through, in hybrid through into Christmas?
Mhm.
How hard would it be to summon an emergency meeting to solve that problem if it would turn otherwise?
Well, I don't think it would be too hard. It depends on whether you all will be reachable, and you've always been great about doing that, and we would not have to meet in person necessarily, although we certainly could if you wanted to, but I don't think it would be that hard to convene.
So I think, yeah, the big question is if we continue with the hybrid model based from now to Christmas, and next Monday or next Tuesday, things kind of blow up and we have an emergency meeting and we're shutting down and going remote from that point. Is it how the teachers just to change for the long term? We're not talking about just a day or two now. We're talking about maybe for the duration.
Jack, I didn't hear all of that.
Okay. The question basically is if say we vote to continue through Christmas, and next week things get out of hand and we have to have our meeting and vote to go remote, and that remote is going to go from there through Martin Luther King Day.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly can the teachers adapt to the long-term remote?
The teachers
It's
have
amazing.
discussion with their principals, know that we could go remote at any time.
Okay. So it wouldn't necessarily be an issue if we had to pull the plug really quick.
I don't think so. The difference I think this year would be also that last year we didn't allow any teachers in the schools. I think this year we know a little bit more about the virus and know that it would be okay as long as everybody is distancing to have them come in and get their materials, or if two of them wanted to teach from school, I wouldn't have any objection to that. I think that would be very helpful to them because sometimes they need to pull something from here or there in their classroom to utilize. And as a result of conversations last August, when we were talking about what if, they did want to be able to come into the schools as needed. And as long as we have too many in all at one time, I would be fine with that.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that too, so everybody is aware of that.
Okay.
I have a
Charlene?
question. Please refresh my memory. What day does Christmas vacation start? Is it Wednesday the 23rd?
I need to get my calendar.
Yeah, I think you're right. Wednesday the 23rd is the last day of school.
Yes.
You're all
Okay.
We're off on the 24th, Charlene.
Yeah.
So we're talking about what? 10
A week and a half.
10 days? We're talking
Yeah.
about 9 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, well, and we're, okay, so it seems to me we're not talking about an inordinate amount of time to be proactive, knowing that we'll probably have a Thanksgiving bump. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning to going remote as of the 14th at this point, because it seems to me it'll give folks almost a week to prepare, and it might just prevent some serious spikes.
I would agree with that, Charlene. The biggest thing that I've heard from parents, and it's been mentioned with our board members, that an abrupt change. They've been nervous all along that could have happened anytime since September to now. At least this point, we're saying they've got the week to get their life and their child care or whatever it is that they need to get worked out. They've got the week to do that. Come Monday, we go to remote, and I think they will. I think it'll work better and be safer, not only for the students but for the staff as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, the hearing done. Then we're gonna vote on the motion on the floor, which is to continue the hybrid model through this Friday, and starting Monday the 14th, go full remote from the 14th through Martin Luther King Day at this point. Correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll take a roll call vote then. Krista,
No.
Tim,
Yes.
Wendy,
No.
Dr. Jim,
No.
Jim Pittman,
Yes,
Charlene,
Yes.
Dana.
No.
Hang on a second. I'm gonna say no. And that leaves it at 4-4. So the motion would fail at that point on a tie vote. So,
Now, I was
Krista?
going to say, then I would make the motion that we stay hybrid through Christmas, and that following Christmas, we go remote for the 2 weeks after Christmas until after Martin Luther King Day.
Krista,
Second,
second by who?
Charlene.
Charlene. I'm sorry. Okay, any more discussion on that?
Can you repeat that motion? Sorry.
The motion is to continue remote, continue the hybrid model from now to the Christmas vacation. And when the students come back after Christmas, they're going to be fully remote until after Martin Luther King Day.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's vote on that one. Krista,
Yes.
Tim,
No.
Wendy,
No.
Dr. Jim,
Yes.
yes,
Charlene,
Yes.
I don't think we can hear you, Jack.
give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Dana.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Yes.
I'm going to vote yes on that. So 6-2. So right now, the plan then would be to remain in the hybrid model until Christmas. Again, unless we have to have an emergency meeting, which we'd have to do. But we'd stay hybrid from now to Christmas and then be fully remote beginning when the students come back right after New Year's through Martin Luther King Day. And that, I think, certainly will give us a chance to see what the spike may or may not be after the Christmas holiday as well. And if we're in remote and we have to stay remote at that point, we certainly can.
And what will be
So
good
we-
about that is that we will have a school board meeting on the 11th. So we
Correct.
would have a school board meeting a week before.
Correct.
really have a better handle on hopefully a face-to-face discussion.
Yep. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so that is the now the next discussion is sports.
Jack, I'm having trouble hearing you every once in a while.
Okay.
I can hear you fine now, but every once in a while you kind of fade out.
Well, I probably back up in my seat, so I'll sit closer to the computer then.
Okay.
I think it's when you turn your head. Whenever you turn your head to the right, you go away.
Well, okay, then I'll lock myself in. All right, so the discussion now is on winter sports, and I'll give you my opinion right off that I think we should cancel winter sports. Simple as that. I think there's too much chance of things happening, and just the discussion we've had about taking students out of the school building and going remote. I think we have to cancel the winter sports. That's my opinion, and certainly open to listen to anybody else's concerns on it.
Jack, I would not consider at this point completely canceling it, but I would certainly go along with putting it on hold, at least until Martin Luther King Day, or when we have our next board meeting, because I'd certainly like to hear from Aaron on what mitigation things he could put in place potentially. So I would hate to completely cut it out at this point, but put it on hold.
I think the problem with that, Tim, and again, I'm not sure of all the details, which we can certainly get. I think the problem with that is the NHIA rules as far as practice, when practices should start, and when the first games are to be played, and that creates some issues. If we delay, making a decision one way or the other. Because I don't think we can put it on hold and still stay within the guidelines for NHIA on when practice is supposed to start and when the first games of the seasons are supposed to be played. So that's an issue, I think.
Does it become cumbersome to talk about indoor sports versus outdoor sports?
It does to an extent. I think the hard part with any of these discussions is, it's a kind of that fairness issue. If you're playing outside, okay, you can do your thing, but you're playing inside, no, you can't do yours. It's an awkward discussion to have, and it's an awkward position for everybody to be put in. So I understand that. Certainly, skiing might be an exception to the rule, but do we make an exception to the rule until the skiing people, you guys are just fine, and the basketball players, sorry, you just can't do it. My gut feeling is it's going to be a kind of
all or nothing.
All or none. That's kind of the way I feel about it. But
well, since we don't know exactly what NHIA will allow or not allow, I would recommend that at this point we put things on hold for taking a vote, get in contact with Aaron, and even if we have to hold a special meeting on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that, not that any of us probably want to do that.
I think, Kathy, do you have some information on that? I don't have it with me, but
I do. Games are supposed to start January 11th, and practices and tryouts, I believe, are starting next week for middle school basketball, and high school basketball will be the following week. And I think Alpine and Nordic are the 14th. So kids are going to start practicing. They're going to start being accepted onto teams if a decision's not made. And then the games start on January 11th. So, and NHIA really isn't changing anything. They're going to stick to that schedule.
When we voted to approve sports, the winter sports program, My understanding was that it was, based on it being done with appropriate, with all the CDC requirements of mask wearing, social distancing, and maybe I'm wrong, because I guess when you're playing hockey is considered a winter sport, and it's already started, right? Because that's how our teams were exposed. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so the other sports aren't starting just yet, but hockey is a winter sports, and it's already demonstrated that whatever mitigation Aaron was putting into place failed. So I would think that we would be remiss if knowing that we gave it a shot, which we did. We gave it a shot, and we have a situation now where, is it 43 students who are quarantined or 45? I can't remember.
It's 43 in one school and then a couple in another school.
Okay, so to me, what's happened with hockey is a pretty good example of how, in spite of the best efforts of those involved, we have this unfortunate situation. And so I also think that, the parents who are concerned about how we're having, hybrid school, or whether we're going to have a remote model and yet allow sports, I can understand that some people aren't happy about that. And I just, because we already have an example where after we gave it a shot, it didn't work, and I think it's time to pull the plug.
Thank you, Charlene. All right, anyone else? Dana?
Yeah, I hate to mention this, but as far as fairness goes, but it looks like indoor sports is going to be a problem. I don't know about skiing yet, or other winter activities, but no matter, it's a no-win situation for us. I know Mr. Donnelly will go along with what Jack said as far as fairness. Either no winter sports would be the fair way to do it, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out. So could we say indoor sports with the idea of waiting until January on outdoor sports? Anybody have any ideas?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I agree. I said, I really feel at this point that I'm not going to draw a line on who should or who shouldn't play sports. I think, to me, it's kind of a winner take all. Either everyone plays or nobody plays. And I know that parents are going to send their kids to outside leagues to play basketball and other things. We can't control that.
Right.
That's something that we know is going to happen if they're not playing in school. I don't like that process, but that's the way it is. Parents can make their own decisions on those things. I think as a school board, we have to take the approach for what we're responsible for. We're responsible for the safety of the kids, for the safety of the staff, and we have to do what we feel is right. Now, that's my opinion. If the majority of the board wants to continue with winter sports as it stands, then we can vote on that as well. Either direction, but we really should give a direction on winter sports, just like we're giving a direction on in-room, the hybrid model or whatever. We're either going to play winter sports or we're not.
And I'll just remind folks that we did just take a vote to continue to send kids to school, but we're going to take a vote to cancel sports. So it seems like we're playing both sides. but I think as far as the hockey piece, it's my understanding that 2 did test positive, and then the entire team was put into quarantine. So that potentially could happen in a classroom too. So I think we just need to be careful moving forward. And I don't know, I think talking with Aaron before we make a decision would probably be a wise choice.
Well,
For me, sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
no, it's all right.
Oh, Charlene. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
That's right.
no,
Wendy, go ahead.
Oh,
ahead, Wendy.
no, I just, I first, I didn't mean to speak over you, Charlene.
No.
But I hear you, but I want, for me, I look at it as mitigation, and for mitigation to keep these kids in school. I mean, there's been plenty of studies that have been coming out that the safest place for kids to be are in school. And there's not a lot of people getting COVID being in school. They're getting COVID being exposed in sports. So I agree with Jack. Nothing. I support the no sports, and let's keep these kids in school and hold the line. They need to be in school as much as possible. And go ahead, Charlene.
Well, I was just going to say that at least when the 2 different cohorts are in school, at least we have some control, and we know that they're all wearing masks and they're all maintaining 6 feet of distance. We don't have that control with any kind of sports. It's not even something that it's illogical to expect that to happen with basketball. It's illogical to expect that to happen with hockey. So the mitigation that we're insisting on following CDC guidelines is much more likely to take place in our classrooms on those 2 days that the students come to school, that it's going to take than is going to take place in any of the sports. Well, except maybe downhill skiing.
Okay.
Let's call the motion.
So what do we think?
I'll make a motion that we discontinue winter sports effective immediately, and for all winter sports.
Second.
Okay, Charlie. Okay, so the motion at this point is to cancel the winter sports at this point, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about well, even the last vote that we took at the last board meeting, we voted against it full in school, but we voted to allow sports. Well, in a way, we're kind of reversing that a little bit this time. We're keeping the kids in school until Christmas, but they're in the model that they're already in. We're not changing that model. My feeling again, I think, is we have to do whatever we can to keep these kids safe, and I will call for a vote. Krista.
Agree.
Tim?
No.
Turn your head back, Jack.
Wendy?
Oh, yes, I agree. I support.
Okay. Dr. Jim?
You're muted.
You're muted, Dr. Jim. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yes.
Okay. Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And 7-1. We are not going to have winter sports.
We say with regret.
With regret, and you're absolutely right. These are tough decisions for everybody to make, and we know that it affects kids. It you know, and I know how important sports can be to individual students. But, you know, we've got to look at all 2,400 students that we have, that we're responsible for, plus the staff and all that, and do the best job we can. So.
And also,
Okay.
I'm happy that at least, although at the time I did not support it, I'm glad that we at least gave it a try. And, you know, we didn't just cancel it out of hand. And now that we have, you know, some experience with the reality, I feel that this was an appropriate move.
Thank you, Charlene. Kathy?
Tough decisions, everyone. Thank you. I'll get something out to parents tomorrow with all of this information in it, and teachers, of course.
And my guess will be they'll get back to you right away.
My guess is there will be some emails that come back.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you know, be perfectly honest with you, I've received quite a few emails over the last several days, knowing that this meeting was going to happen and all of that. And you know, people are split, definitely split on opinions, whether it be sports or kids in school, remote, whatever the case may be. And, you know, I tell most people, I said, I understand that no matter what we decide, there's going to be half the people are going to be okay, and the other people are going to say, you guys are jerks. And we kind of know that. But we've got to do what we feel is the absolutely best thing we can do for the majority of the people out there, and you know, we've got to have the big shoulders to take the brunt of it, and that's what we're here for. So, okay.
Well,
thank you. Moving on to the New Hampshire School Board Association. Just so you know, we had a Zoom meeting last Thursday night. A relatively long meeting about budgets and all kinds of other things, but the basic discussion was about the upcoming delegate assembly in January and what to do about that, because we don't have the ability to use the facility that we're in. We generally have 60 to 70 people show up, plus the board and all of that, and it's a full day event. So and there was a lot of concern. The first discussion was, well, why don't we move it to the fall, which is when it used to traditionally was back in about 15 years ago, just before I got on the board. The delegate assembly was held the last week of September, first week of October. And they did that because any resolutions coming forward, they had the ability to get those to the legislative session as they started their new sessions. So if there was any resolutions that had effect, they could get them in time to the legislative committees that they wanted to deal with. For some reason, back 14, 15 years ago, something happened in October. They automatically moved the meeting to January, and it just stuck for the next 14 years. The big concern this year was that we have 7 resolutions that were presented. Some that the board is going to support and some that not. But we felt that we couldn't just put those off until, say, next fall. So it was decided that we're going to figure out how to do a remote delegate assembly without all the fluff in the beginning, which is the presentations for the school board of the year and all those things in the beginning. We're going to go right into the work session, the actual delegate assembly session at 10 o'clock in the morning, and go through the budget, the election of officers, and all of those things, and then go through the resolutions as presented, and hopefully be done by noontime on a Zoom type conference. The delegate assembly then for the following year, it was suggested, I actually made the suggestion that we move it to the last Saturday in September, and that would be the same date every single year, so people would know last Saturday in September is going to be the delegate assembly. So that's basically what's happening at the School Board Association. There's a lot of work going on between them and the legislature, and certainly the new incoming legislature. They have to deal with who's on what committees and who's going to be who's going to be our friend in the education world. So that's kind of where we're at. I have just one note that we sent a get well wish to Lloyd Wood. Don't know if you knew Lloyd Wood was in the accident that happened right in front of the hospital last week. He was one of the 5 cars that was involved in the accident. He got beat up a little bit, got a concussion, but he was back at the selectmen's meeting the other day, so I think he's doing okay. But we sent him a card, and the one thing I forgot to bring, and I'll try to scan it in and send it to everybody. I got a beautiful card, a huge card from Effingham. And the students made some really, really nice sayings on the card about their new solar project, and it was absolutely wonderful. So, and I forgot to bring it tonight, but it would have been nice to share around the table anyway. But I'll try to scan in all 4 pages of it and send it to you, because some of the comments were just terrific, and the pictures and all that went along with it. Really, really sweet for them to do, and it was really, really fun to watch. So I'll try to get that to you within the next day or so.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to committee reports, because I think I just saw I have like 22% on my laptop here, so I'm getting down on time here. Academic affairs, Wendy.
Hey, Jack. So we have 2 academic policies, EHAV for the IT disaster recovery plan, and we have JCA. Both were previously reviewed, did a first read and second read, and now we're bringing them forward for academic affairs for approval. So I'd like a motion to approve those 2 policies as previously distributed.
Okay, you're gonna make the motion to approve both as a package. That's fine. Somebody second that?
Is that okay?
Is that okay?
Okay.
I'll second.
It's okay for me.
Okay. All right, Charlene seconded it. So we're gonna approve the 2 motions, EHV and JCA, as presented. Any comments or concerns? Okay, all those in favor, Krista,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dr. Jim,
Yes.
Jim Pittman,
Yes.
Charlene,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. Building and maintenance, Julianne is not here. Anything from that committee to report?
Kathy?
You,
Kathy, you got a report, yeah, don't you?
Anything specific?
I had sent something to Julianne. Let me just grab my folder on that. I did, we did have to cancel the meeting, just due to the fact that we couldn't stream it to everyone. So unfortunately, we'll have to reschedule that date. But I had a update maybe on the solar power that it went live on November 17th. And to date, as of today at around 10 o'clock, we had produced 376.65 megahertz.
Cool.
Rolling so long. That is, I know. Over the weekend, it didn't fare so well, but you can understand why. Tim and I did walkthroughs throughout the buildings on Wednesdays where there was the least amount of students, so we didn't want to impact on instruction. But we got through the whole district that way. Thank you, Tim, for accompanying me on that. And we have CIP coming up with next year and long term, which we would get into at our next meeting. And I think that's about it. Tim, if there's anything that you had, because I know we've kind of been walking through the buildings, but I really don't know that there's much more than that.
No, I think you pretty much covered it. The solar project was the biggest thing to mention, and the other thing is to consider the increase for the budget. Certainly, Kathy, if you meet with the finance committee and share the list that we had come up with of some of those projects that keep getting kicked on down the road, that will eventually turn into huge projects costing much more. So I would suggest looking at the increase there. But other than that, no, that would be it.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Okay, yeah, Kathy, I think, Kathy, if you can put, put some of that information together and maybe email it to the finance committee, so we can all kind of look at it first and understand what we're up against. And
Absolutely.
then, okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have nothing more for finance other than whatever we do between now and the next meeting for the final budget presentation and whatever adjustments we make. Nothing on human resources at this point. Advanced planning, location for the January 11th meeting. Again, if we're still in a mode where, if we can meet, if everyone is healthy and there's no more issues right after the New Year, I'd certainly like to go back into the Art Center and have a face-to-face if we can do that. But again, if it's impossible to do that, then it's impossible to do that. We'll see how everybody is doing at that point in time and decide where to have that meeting. I think the Art Center probably makes the most sense because we can spread out the biggest area there. The other alternative, like I said, could be the lecture hall. If we can spread out enough in the front of the lecture hall to do the budget presentation, which is where we normally do the final budget adoption. But either way, I think will work for me. Yeah.
Jack?
Yes.
The Art Center is not available on the 11th. It would be available on the 12th, but if you go with the 11th, the Art Center is already booked for something.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see if we think the lecture hall will work. If we think we can social distance in the front lecture hall, spreading out basically from one end to the other in the front, and if we can have mics of some sort to mic us up. We generally don't have at the final budget presentation. We generally don't have more than a half a dozen people come to that, and if that's the case, we can certainly spread them out. If we have more, we'll spread them out and social distance as best we can. There's enough seats there, I think, where we could probably spread quite a few people out. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we may have to mark the seats off so people know where to sit. So I'll ask maintenance to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And if it can't be there, let's look at one of the schools that has a big enough gymnasium, maybe that we could set up. I know that's going to be back in. School's going to. Well, we're going to be remote, so the school buildings are going to be available. So if it makes more sense to be in one of the schools in the gymnasium and set it up that way, maybe we could do it that way as well.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think Crescent Lake would be a good second alternative.
Okay. All right. Again, I am getting some emails, which is great. We'll get back to everybody tomorrow, tonight if I can, but tomorrow we'll certainly get back. And some happy, some not so happy, maybe, but whatever it is, it is. So again, public input. You can either email SAU49@SAU49.org, or you can email me at JWIDMER@SAU49.org, and we'll get back to you on your emails. Closing comments by board members.
Jack, may I ask a question?
Yes, you certainly may.
Given that there's, I think, still a significant power and internet outage in, I think, New Durham, at least, is it possible that we might accept public input a little bit beyond the 24 hours so that people have time to watch
Good, very, very good point. If there is some issues, let's extend it. Today is Monday. Let's extend it to the end of the day, Wednesday, and let me know if you still know that there's some issues that are still out there at that point in time. We can extend it another 24 hours if needed. You know, we certainly want to take whatever input we can from the public.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that. Any other closing comments? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to go into non-public under 91A semicolon 3, paragraph 2 for a student and a personnel matter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, wait a minute. Who moved? Charlene moved?
I think,
All right, Charlene moved, Tim seconded. All right, we're going into non-public. Okay, Krista,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dr. Jim,
Yep.
Jim Pittman,
Yes.
Charlene,
yes.
Dana,
Yes.
and Chair votes aye. So we are in non-public.